The noble who collected children's heads sounds like something from a twisted legend, doesn't it? But what if I told you it's terrifyingly real? Behind velvet curtains and royal banquets, one nobleman fed a monstrous obsession that even history dared not whisper too loud. This wasn't just cruelty. It was ritual, a dark compulsion masked behind the power of a title and the silence of fear. These weren't enemies on a battlefield, but innocent children, stolen, slaughtered, and displayed like trophies. As his peers toasted wine and praised lineage, this man built a secret collection that would make even the cruelest tyrants shudder. Was it madness, a pact with something darker, or simply the unfiltered face of unchecked power? Step into the shadows of a gilded palace, where screams were muffled by gold, and discover the grotesque truth history tried to bury. Not all monsters wear rags, some wear crowns, and some collect heads. They said he walked like a man born to command, every step measured, every word polished. Nobility practically dripped off him. Lavish dinners, golden goblets, the laughter of lords and ladies echoing through stone halls. He was the kind of figure who could silence a room with a glance, and make it smile with a single phrase. People didn't question his habits. They admired his estate, envied his power, and whispered praises behind closed doors. But in the villages below, a different kind of whisper grew. Quiet, trembling, laced with dread. Children were vanishing. One here, then another weeks later. Always the poor, always the unnoticed, and always when the moon hung fat and white in the sky. Guards claimed wolves. Priests mumbled curses. But no one pointed fingers at the man who hosted the king's advisors, who funded orphanages, who smiled just a little too wide when stories of missing children surfaced. No one wanted to believe that darkness could wear such a polished face, because to accuse him was to accuse the system that protected him, to admit that evil doesn't always snarl. Sometimes it sips wine and offers you a toast, and in the glow of the chandeliers no one saw the red on his hands. That's how he began, not with blood, but with silence. And silence is a killer far more loyal than any sword. The disappearances didn't come in a wave. They came like slow poison. One child, then another. A month of quiet, and then 3 gone in 1 week. Always the youngest, always near the edge of the forest, or walking home from the well, or sleeping just a little too far from their siblings. Parents screamed, mothers clawed at church doors, but grief makes easy prey for distraction. The crown sent letters, not soldiers. Promises, not answers, and still the children vanished. The pattern was too precise to ignore. It wasn't random. It wasn't wild beasts or fate. It was measured, intentional. The dates circled the full moon as though someone was keeping a calendar. A ritual, maybe, or just someone who needed time to prepare. Whatever it was, it fed on the poorest families, the ones no one listened to, the ones who were already used to being overlooked. Some claimed it was a spirit haunting the land. Others said the old gods were angry. Superstitions flared because the truth was far too dangerous. The idea that someone from within, someone who smiled at the court, could be behind it all. And through it all, one thing never changed: the man at the top of the hill, hosting banquets, entertaining bishops, pouring wine with a steady hand while the village below buried empty cribs. See, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled wasn't hiding in shadows. It was standing in the light and making you bow. The estate was a masterpiece: walls carved with stories of conquest, ceilings painted with saints and angels. But beneath that splendor was a door no one was allowed to open. Hidden behind a tapestry, sealed by custom more than key, it led to a narrow stair spiraling deep into the earth. Few knew it existed. Fewer still had seen what lay below: a room, cold, silent, lit by a single lantern that burned day and night. And inside, glass cases, carefully arranged on stone shelves, dozens of them. each one holding the preserved head of a child, their features frozen in terror, their eyes, when still present, wide open, staring into nothing. He hadn't just taken them. He'd kept them, catalogued them, each labeled with a date, a name, and a location, like some grotesque gallery of innocence lost. The air down there didn't just stink of death, it reeked of obsession. This wasn't madness scribbled on walls or blood-stained chaos. It was careful, deliberate, every head preserved with the skill of a surgeon and the reverence of a worshipper. This was not the work of a man who lost control. This was the work of someone who believed he was building something eternal. Upstairs, the music played, the wine flowed. No one knew that just beneath their feet lay a museum of stolen childhoods, each one silenced by the very hand that toasted their disappearance. And the worst part, I didn't collect them for pleasure. I collected them to remember. People wanted to believe it was madness, that something broke inside him, a childhood trauma, a sickness of the mind, something they could label, diagnose, and lock away. Madness is easier to swallow than evil. But this wasn't chaos. This was order, patterns, symbols carved beneath each display, rituals followed to the letter, a diary hidden beneath his floorboards, filled with Latin phrases, drawings of ancient sigils, and references to things older than the kingdom itself. Some pages spoke of offerings, others of voices in the night. There were instructions, specific ages, moon phases, the need for fear at the moment of death. It wasn't random, it was worship, or perhaps a deal. And the more you read, the more it seemed like he truly believed that the children weren't being taken. They were being chosen. Was it for power, immortality, or something darker still? The nobles whispered about his youth that never faded, his strength that never failed. They joked he never aged a day, but no one asked why. Because once you entertained the idea that he was doing it on purpose, and worse, that it was working, then you have to face something much uglier than madness. You have to face intent. I didn't kill for pleasure. I killed because the gods were listening, and every time I offered them a child, they answered. For years, the house staff knew to keep their eyes low and their questions lower. Servants came and went, some too afraid to return after a single shift. But one, young, quiet, and nearly invisible, stayed, maybe out of fear, maybe out of survival, maybe because he saw too much too early and couldn't unsee it. He learned to move without making noise, to hear everything and say nothing, until one night he followed the noble down that narrow spiral staircase. What he saw broke him. He didn't scream, he didn't run. He just stood there, frozen among the faces in glass, his breath fogging up the air of the tomb. After that, he changed. He didn't eat, didn't sleep, but he watched closely, patiently, and when the time came, he ran. He didn't go to the guards, they were paid off. He didn't go to the priests, they were blind with fear. He went to an old scholar, one who had once been banished for speaking of forbidden rites. Together, they returned to the estate while the noble was away on royal business. They cracked the sealed chamber, documented everything, and fled before the sun rose. And when word reached the capital, not even power could shield him anymore. It only takes one voice to shatter an empire of silence. I should have killed him when I had the chance. But I wanted him to see what comes next, because truth isn't justice. It's just the beginning of something far worse. When the truth finally clawed its way to the surface, it didn't come with ceremony. It came with fire. The estate, that once echoed with laughter and clinking goblets, now burned against the night like a cursed beacon. Villagers gathered not with pitchforks, but with torches and silence. No chants, no justice speeches. Just the quiet fury of people who had buried too many children without answers. The crown could no longer hide behind diplomacy. Soldiers arrived not to protect, but to seize. The once revered noble was declared a traitor, a madman, a heretic, anything that would distance the royal name from the horror he built beneath their banners. They stormed the halls, ripped tapestries from walls, shattered glass displays. The chamber of heads was turned to ash. But here's where the story bends. No body was ever found, no final confrontation. Just an empty room, an open window, and a trail of blood leading to the woods that swallowed the village sphere for decades. Some say he died in the fire. Others claim he escaped changed, cursed, or perhaps rewarded by whatever dark force he had served. His name was struck from records, his estate erased from maps. Yet still, on nights when the moon is too full, parents keep their children close. Because stories like these don't end, they wait. And if you're wondering how I know all of this, it's because I'm still collecting. Just not where you think. You've heard the whispers. You've seen the mask fall. And now you know the truth that history tried to bury beneath gold and titles. This wasn't just a man. It was a warning. Evil doesn't always crawl in shadows. Sometimes it dines with kings, speaks in poetry, and builds its altar out of innocence. The question isn't asterisk how asterisk he did it. The question is, asterisk how many more like him still walk among us asterisk because monsters don't die when the flames go out. They just learn to smile better